Okay, we'll start tonight's meeting with, this is our April 13th, 2020 Matthews Town Council meeting, and the first one we're trying using Zoom. So we're doing this virtually due to Mecklenburg County's COVID-19 stay-at-home order. We will be doing this remotely with Zoom. The Town of Matthews is committed in transparency and a robust public participation during these challenging times. So while the public is not permitted to gather in person to participate in this meeting, there are options to participate remotely. This will also be streamed live on YouTube, so you can watch it. And I'll start by introducing the commissioners, and I won't go around the table or around the dais as usual. I'll just look across my Zoom screen. I'd like to introduce Commissioner Dave Bland. Dave, Commissioner Ken McCool, Town Attorney Charlie Buckley, Commissioner Larry Whitley, Planning Director Jay Camp, Town Manager Hazen Blodgett, Commissioner Jeff Miller, Commissioner John Urban, Fire Chief Rob Kinnenberg, Assistant Town Manager Becky Hawk, and our Town Clerk Lori Canapino. Did I miss anybody? Okay, I think that's everyone. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'd like to start. I'm going to be giving invocation this evening. I'd like to start before I give the invocation by prefacing my invocation with a few remarks. This past year at Christmas time with my siblings and parents, we realized that we probably had everything physically that we could ever want, so we didn't need more stuff. So we've been trying to gift one another gifts of experiences. And one of the things that I hope to be able to participate with my sister Vicky and brother-in-law Greg and mother and father, as we were all going to go to the Peace Center in Greenville to watch David Foster. I don't know if any of you know who David Foster is. Some of you do. Very famous singer, songwriter, mostly songwriter. He's written about 100 songs that have charted for people like Celine Dion, Josh Groban, Frank Sinatra, Earth, Wind and Fire, lots of bands. And I came across quite by accident just yesterday a recording that a father and daughter had done. Some of you may have seen it. And it's called The Prayer. It just so happens that David Foster and Carol Bayer Sager wrote this song in the 90s. I think it's really apropos to what we're going through right now. So I'd like to just read a couple of the stanzas from this song. It's kind of like a poem, but it's called The Prayer. And unfortunately, Mr. Foster's concert was canceled, but I hope to be able to see him at some future time. But for those of you that would care to, please join me with this prayer. Father, I pray you'll be our eyes and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer when we lose our way. Lead us to the place and guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe. A world where pain and sorrow will be ended, and every heart that's broken will be mended. And we'll remember we are all God's children, reaching out to touch you, reaching to the sky. Let this be our prayer then, just like every child who needs to find a place. Guide us with your grace and give us faith so we'll be safe. We offer this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now do the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me in Pledge of Allegiance. We don't need to stand. I don't think it'll be appropriate, but I pledge allegiance to the flag,
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the
Republic
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you. Boy, that was a little disjointed. Item number 4, we'd like to consider some remote participation meeting guidelines. Who's going to take that one?
Lori, do you want me to handle it? Charlie? Okay.
Jay will show the document in just a moment. Hazen, if you could take it, please.
Sure.
Excellent.
So there's, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this is, of course, a new experience for us and the state and the country for that matter, but we've had great help with the School of Government. Really, it's regarded as probably the best institution in the country to guide local governments through legal issues, and here's one at the forefront. So this has been thoroughly vetted. It's really a best practices. I know Lori Canapino, the clerk, spent a lot of time kind of working and vetting this, and we recommend we approve this, and happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Hazen, it's a rather short document. Would you mind just reading it?
Sure.
I'm sorry, maybe it's not a short document.
So the overview, the purpose of this policy is to establish guidelines which will allow members of the Board of Commissioners and town advisory committees who are unable to physically attend an official meeting to participate remotely via conference, telephone, or other electronic, simultaneous methods, in parentheses, remote participation. This policy is intended to allow remote participation only during a time in which a state of emergency declaration has been issued by the town or by the county, local, state, or federal government, and which includes a stay-at-home order or other limitation on public assembly. Remote participation will not be permitted outside of that unless otherwise permitted by the board, committee, bylaws, or rules of procedure. So obviously there's the parameters of that, and you guys do have the authority in your rules of procedures to use it in other areas as well. Remote participation, there's going to be at least 7. First one is remote participation is defined as participation in an official board/committee meeting by a member who is not physically present at the meeting via means of electronic or simultaneous methods, such as audio and/or video, period. Acceptable means of remote participation include telephone, internet, or satellite-enabled audio or video conferencing, or any other technology that enables the remote participant and/or other participants to be clearly audible to one another. If using video technology, remote participants must be clearly visible to all other participants. Text messaging, instant messaging, email, and web chat without audio are not acceptable means of remote participation. Accommodations shall be made for any member who requires text telephone service, video service, relay service, or other form of adaptive telecommunications. All right, number 2, remote participation is allowed only to continue the provision of government services during a declared state of emergency, which includes a stay-at-home order and/or limitation on public assembly. Number 3, remote participation is not allowed for the following reasons: quasi-judicial hearings, which are typically Board of Adjustments, and 2, closed sessions, or B, closed sessions. Number 4, remote participation meetings are required to be held in such a way as to allow public access. Notice of such meetings must include instructions for the public on means to access the meeting. Number 5, no member is required to be physically present in the standard meeting location to hold an official meeting. Remote participation meetings must conform to standard quorum requirements in order to conduct any official business. Number 6, all members and staff participating remotely should connect before the meeting begins. Remote members must be able to hear all other members and other participants and be heard, or else that member will not be able to participate remotely. After the meeting is called to order, the presiding officer must announce the following: A, the reason for the remote participation; B, the names of each member participating in the meeting. Number 8, the presiding officer will ensure that each remote member has an opportunity to be heard. During votes, The presiding officer will call on each member to cast a verbal vote. The presiding officer will verbalize the outcome of the vote. Number 9, presentations from the public must be submitted prior to the start of the meeting and will be distributed/displayed by staff during the meeting. No members of the public will be allowed to share screens or otherwise control the means of visual display during the meeting. 10, public comments when scheduled on the agenda will be accepted via electronic means until 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Comments must be emailed to matthews@matthewsnc.gov or called in to 704-708-1222. Comments must be transcribed and/or read into the record during the meeting. Comments may be edited to conform to the 4-minute allowance for each public comment. The public comment period for any single meeting may not exceed 20 minutes. If there are more comments than the time limit will allow, the comments permitted to be read at that meeting will be determined on a first-come, first-served basis unless otherwise allowed by the presiding officer. All comments received will be added to the written record, even if not read aloud during the meeting. Number 11, it is the responsibility of the remote member to maintain a connection during the meeting. A board member considered present through remote participation will be permitted to vote on any item at the meeting, except for any item that has been discussed when an interruption to the remote participation occurred, unless the discussion was suspended during the interruption. A brief loss of simultaneous communication, such as a few seconds, will not disqualify the member from voting on a matter under discussion. If remote participation is established, but is then interrupted or ends, the member will be considered excused from the meeting, and therefore no votes from that member will be recorded after that time. Number 12, the presiding officer may decide how to address technical difficulties that arise when utilizing remote participation. But whenever possible, the presiding officer should suspend discussion while reasonable efforts are made to correct any problem that interferes with the remote participants' ability to hear or be heard clearly by all the participants. If the technical difficulties distract from or impede the orderly progress of the meeting must be continued to a later date/time. Number 13, remote participation will be noted in the official minutes. Any interruption to or discontinuation of a member's participation will also be noted in the meetings. 14, no costs associated with remote participation other than the personal telephone or internet connection costs shall be borne by members of the public who wish to observe / participate in the meeting.
Thank you, Hazen.
Thank you. I realized that wasn't, perhaps I was a little sarcastic when I said it's short, but I think that it's important that we read it so that all of us certainly understand it and the public understands it as well. So very good. Appreciate that. Are there any questions at all? I should add that I can't always see everyone all the time, depending on what's on the screen. So if you have a question or a comment, please raise your hand or say, excuse me. I know everyone's voice, I believe, that I can call on the correct person. And also, any votes that we take tonight, we'll be doing them one at a time. I'll call each commissioner and ask for your vote so that we can get a clear record of who voted which way. Are there any further questions on this policy?
I have a question about number 10 at the very end.
Sure, Jeff, go ahead.
At the middle, about 60% down, if there are more comments than time limit will allow, the comments permitted to be read at the meeting will be determined on a first come, first served basis unless otherwise allowed by the presiding officer. All comments received will be added to the written record, even if not read aloud during the meeting. How is the board going to hear that record in real time or without going to the consent agenda the following, 14 days later? How do we react to that on number 10, the bottom?
Mayor, may I comment?
Absolutely. Thank you. Lori?
We will know ahead of time how many comments we will have received. So if we do have more than would take 20 minutes, I'd be able to advise the mayor ahead of time, and he or the board could choose to expand that 20-minute time period if that's the will.
All right. I just don't want anything, being hidden in to the minutes.
Yes, sir, I
Yeah.
understood.
I'm good with that.
And unless there was a overwhelming reason to do so, we would more than likely listen to all of the comments. We rarely get more than 20 minutes worth anyway, but that would certainly be the case.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this? I think it was a difficult policy to put together, and I want to thank staff for trying to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. It's not easy to consider all the ramifications legally and otherwise for a document like this. But if we need to change it, we can. But I think it's will suffice for now.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, and make sure if you are saying something, make sure your mute button is not on. We'll move on to agenda item number 5. We're going to receive an update on COVID-19 from
Mayor, you need to adopt that policy. Mayor,
yes.
Vote.
you need to adopt the policy.
Okay. I will. Anybody have a motion to adopt the policy?
I'd like to make
Miller.
a motion then.
Second.
Whitley.
Second. Well, I made the motion that we adopt and Miller said he seconded.
Okay. So we have a motion to adopt the remote meeting policy. It was the motion was made by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Whitley. We'll go one at a time. Commissioner Bland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Garner. I think you're muted, but I saw your lips move. So I think that's everyone, right? We got 6 commissioners, and the mayor votes affirmative as well. So that passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to item
Mayor,
number 5.
Mayor, the Commissioner Whitley and Commissioner Miller, you didn't ask them their vote, even though they made the motion and seconded it. You need to ask their vote.
Commissioner Miller, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Whitley.
Yay.
Yay. Okay.
Okay.
We'll get there, guys. We're learning. That passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 5, receive an update from Rob Kinnenberg on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. We last talked about COVID at the first March meeting. Today is day 35 as emergency management counts or is keeping track of the COVID pandemic. To date, we have had 975 positive cases in Mecklenburg County and 15 deaths, and that is as of 5 o'clock today. Efforts to combat coronavirus continue to be coordinated by emergency management and public health departments on a county and state level. Town, city, and county agencies interface daily via teleconference with Matthews fully integrated into these efforts. Emergency support functions and policy groups meet virtually every day as well. The emergency management system that we use is based on neighbor helping neighbor, with local, state, and regional jurisdictions lending and receiving resources when they have exceeded their capacity to deal with the emergency. Never has an emergency such as COVID-19 affected so many so fast and stretched resources to their maximum, and never has our emergency management system been implemented to this extent. Town staff has been involved in numerous areas. Matthews's efforts to limit the spread and flatten the curve. These are all terms we've grown very familiar with, but to flatten the curve, we have put into place work from home and telework options for many of our employees. Employees that cannot telework have been placed on paid administrative leave. Administrative leave for employees who have had secondhand exposures have been made out of an abundance of caution. We have seen changes to our EMS response protocols. Medic, CFD, and CMPD lead emergency support function activities with local involvement in the decision-making process by Matthews representatives. Complaint-based enforcement of the stay-at-home and business occupancy use is the norm, and we've closed certain public park areas to prevent the spread of coronavirus. We have a group of employees who cannot avoid being at work and engaging in the public, so we've taken a lot of time to deal with how we are going to manage essential employee exposures. Again, we've made changes to our response protocols, and we've limited first responder EMS response. Working with Novant's occupational medicine, we have set up post-exposure testing processes. Working with the health department, we've conducted some proactive testing of employees who could have been exposed but were exhibiting symptoms. We have aggressively used personal protective equipment by both the police and fire departments. Every law enforcement, every police officer, and every firefighter has a first line issue of protective equipment. We've explored options to disinfect stations should the virus come back to the station, and we've stressed personal hygiene in the workforce. Logistically, COVID has been a challenge, but we have been coordinating purchases of goggles and gloves between the police and fire departments. We've gone to a county-wide purchasing and distributing process for critical gowns and masks. We conduct regular inventories and track burn rates of all equipment, and we have graciously received donations from the public of essential personal protective equipment. On a finance level, we have set up special object codes to track COVID-related expenses and are keeping track of all FEMA eligible expenses and time management. One of our greatest efforts is trying to keep the community informed. The town's website directs people to the charmec.org website for the most up-to-date information. Maureen Keith is fully engaged as part of the Joint Information Center out of the EOC. We did a Chamber of Commerce virtual webinar to help businesses understand how to comply with the stay-at-home order. The police chief, fire chief, and the mayor have done social media public service announcements, and we have been in communication with our skilled nursing and retirement community. We continue to see evidence that our efforts are paying off. COVID spread and the rate of infection is currently below the healthcare system's capacity to treat those affected. And we are seeing a higher than anticipated degree of compliance among our citizens. We continue to stress social distancing. We were one of the first to put in place a stay-at-home order. We support the governor's statewide stay-at-home order. We've worked with schools, restaurants, and non-essential businesses to let them see that they need to close. We've worked with essential businesses to help limit facility occupancy, and we hope that by maintaining our efforts, we can limit the spread. At this point, we must stay the course and reinforce our efforts and continue to make decisions based on the best public health information we can obtain. Yes, this has been an economic and lifestyle hardship for many, but we have to take the combat against COVID-19 seriously. Your leadership team, the manager, the assistant manager, and the department heads completely support the efforts of all the county agencies to deal with COVID. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions for Chief Kinnenberg?
I got one.
Commissioner Whitley?
Chief, how many cases do we have in Matthews?
We have approximately 20 residents who are in isolation and being tracked through the health department.
No, no deaths.
No deaths that we are aware of.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Miller, you have a question?
No, sir. Thank you. Sorry.
I think you must have made some minute sound and your box lit up around you.
Exactly.
Any other questions or comments for Chief Kindenberg?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We really appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, item number 6, do we have any items to be added to the agenda?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. We would like to add one item. It's Telecommunicators Week. It's a proclamation. Chief Pennington, do you want to speak on that in any way?
I can. This is the opportunity for the community to come together and to show their appreciation for the hard work that our telecommunicators do across this country. They're an equal part of our public safety team. They are the first voice on the other end of that phone that an individual hears when they have a critical incident. So we just wanted to take this opportunity and thank the mayor for the proclamation and the recognition of our public safety telecommunicators.
Okay, I'd like to take this opportunity to read the proclamation into the record, if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
Proclamation in recognition of National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. Whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Matthews Emergency Communication Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Matthews Emergency Communication Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each telecommunicator has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performances of their job in the past year, now therefore, on behalf of the Matthews Board of Commissioners, I, John F. Higdon, Mayor of the Town of Matthews, do hereby proclaim April 12th through 18, 2020 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. In the Town of Matthews, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our town and citizens safe. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the Town of Matthews to be affixed this 13th day of April, 2020. So thank you, Chief, and thank you very much for our telecommunicators.
Thank you.
Move on to item 7. Lori, were there any public comment requests?
There were no public comments.
Do we need a motion to approve the proclamation?
I don't think so. Do we, Charlie?
Well, was that the mayor's proclamation or did the commissioners join in?
The commissioners joined in. If you could take a motion, that would be great.
Then they would take a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we approve that proclamation, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Seconded by Commissioner McCool. I want to ask each of you how you vote on this proclamation. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Yes, and I vote affirmative as well. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. So there were no public comments. I will entertain a motion to recess the regular meeting for public hearings on applications to amend the Unified Development Ordinance and land use map of the Town of Matthews.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Second.
second by Commissioner Miller. How do you vote, Commissioner Bland? Boy, this is awkward.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Yes.
and I vote affirmative as well. That passes unanimously. So first, we will consider 8A, zoning application 2020-710, Inner Peaks, to change the text in the UDO table 5052-7.2-7 to add P under the B3 zoning district to allow indoor commercial recreation not otherwise listed as a permitted use in the B3 zoning district. Who is taking that? Mary Jo or Jay or?
This is just opening and continuance, Mayor. So we do not have a staff report prepared today.
We'll
Okay.
need the memo put up on the screen though, I believe. Jay.
Right. The intent on the agenda was to go ahead and just continue this. So we typically do not present any information unless we hadn't planned
We
to.
need a motion to continue, correct, Charlie?
That's correct. And to the June 8th meeting.
I'll make a motion to continue zoning application 2020-710 Inner Peaks to the June, what,
Eight.
June
June 8th.
8th. Okay, there it is, to the June 8th meeting.
Okay, motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Garner, seconded by Commissioner Bland. Again, we'll go through the exercise. Commissioner Bland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
And I vote affirmative as well. So this will be continued to our June 8th meeting. We'll move on to item 8B. Zoning application 2020-711 Christ Life Church to change the conditions in that certain DHCD district located at 1641 Matthews Township Parkway and being the Christ Life Church property and further designated as tax parcels 193-292-23 and 23E to allow ballrooms, banquets, or meetings, catering halls as a permitted use. And I'd like to continue this one as well.
Yes, Mayor. The applicant has been abiding by the emergency state and has not had a chance to have a community meeting, so they asked for a continuance to June 8th.
So do I have a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue zoning application 2020-711 Christ Life Church to the June 8th, 2020 meeting.
Second.
I second it.
Commissioner McCool beat you to it, Commissioner Whitley. So we have a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Garner, seconded by Commissioner McCool. I'll go through the roll call again. How do you vote, Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes, but I have a question. On my PC, I pulled up the agenda so that I could have a split screen, so to speak. And the original, unless I missed something, was to continue the public hearing until May 11th or June 8th. Have we nixed the May 11th as of right now?
That was my understanding, that we should continue to June 8th.
All right, thank you. Then, yes, affirmative for me.
Follow up on that, Jay, is the applicant okay with that? Or Mary Jo?
Yes, I have been in continuous contact with the applicant. They understand the situation. And again, yes, they are aware of it. They're not holding any, they can't hold any banquets anyways, so
Sure.
they're fine.
Moving on, Commissioner Urban, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
And I vote affirmative as well, so that passes unanimously. I will entertain a motion to reconvene the regular meeting.
So move.
So move.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Whitley. Commissioner Bland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner? And I vote affirmative as well, so we are now back in our regular meeting, and we're going to go on to planning and development business. Item 10, A1, zoning application 2020-709 BAPS to change the zoning from R15 and RICD to RICD on 3 parcels designated as 2416 Stephen Mill Road and 2021 and 2050 Independence Commerce Drive, and being property belonging to BAPS Charlotte LLC, and being further designated as tax parcels 215-094-02, 03, and 06. I believe, Jay, you're going to present this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I thought it would be helpful just to give everyone a brief overview of how we got here. Of course, here on the screen, we have the site plan. And I did, at the mayor's request, enlarge the cursor here. So hopefully you all can see what I'm pointing at remotely. But this is the parcel in question that was added that created the cause for the change in conditions. We had a public hearing, of course, in March. The planning board, with the COVID-19 coming on rapidly in March, we were not able to hold a planning board meeting. So that ended with no meeting being held. Essentially, by state law, becomes an affirmative vote of the planning board. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that for their lack of ability to review the plans. A couple of housekeeping notes here. The PCO plan, we have run this by Mecklenburg County. They're comfortable with the PCO plan, so there are no concerns there. I was speaking with Ty earlier. Of course, Ty, Nick Patel, and Colin Brock are on the Zoom call today and can answer any questions you have. The development standards that were attached to the memo indicate February 26th. There was, however, a later set of standards from 324. It had one minor change, but I wanted to make sure we were above board here. There was the addition of stucco as a building material for the building, and that was the only change in the development notes. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. A couple of items that have come up here over the last few days that we've been talking about, and bear with me here, I'm going to try to scroll and point. There's a berm proposed along Stevens Mill Road. It is directly across from the Hoover property. According to these development notes and the call out here on the screen, this is going to be a landscape berm that is a minimum of 3 feet and a maximum of 6 feet in height. So the concept here from the landscape architect is to have an undulating berm, and so that it looks more natural to passersby. We have received some feedback from the property owner across the street, and the proposal now would be to have a 100-foot wide portion of the berm directly across from the home across the street that would be 6 feet in height. And that is something that the applicant has agreed to via email to me. So that should be part of the motion, so should you all accept that condition. The second item I wanted to call your attention to, bear with me here. At the hard corner of Independence Commerce Drive and Mount Harmony Church, the applicant has added screening of the parking. Here you'll see it's probably kind of hard to see on your screens. There's shrubbery proposed for the parking lot to provide some screening from the public rights of way. Having said that, that's really the only updates I have. The conditional notes, if you were to compare notes from the plans that came in last fall, they're verbatim, except for the addition of the berm, of course. But the notes pertaining to construction access, all of the requirements along Independence Commerce Drive, ensuring that there's no restriction of access to adjoining businesses, all of that is completely unchanged from the plans that were approved last fall. So planning, we recommend approval of this rezoning this evening. We do think it's a superior plan. It gave the applicant the ability with this extra parcel to design a much improved site plan, and we do think this will be a great addition to the community. With that, I'll answer any questions you all have at this time.
I do have a question, Jay. The note regarding stucco, how significantly is that product going to be used, and where is it being used?
If we could bring Mr. Schaefer on board, perhaps he could answer that. And I can probably bring the note in here just a moment.
Yeah, am I on?
You're on.
Yeah,
hear you.
hi, this is Ty Schaefer, Robinson Bradshaw. We represent BAPS. A little bit of clarification. So stucco was a building material that was included in the development standards in the rezoning application that was approved in November. It's carried over here. We had mentioned at the meeting that the addition that was made was actually the ability to use, I'll pull up for you. Was traditional cementatious and or synthetic. My understanding is this would mostly be used for decorative elements on the structure. But unfortunately, the architects couldn't be on tonight due to power outages, so I don't have detail on exactly what percentage or how extensive that use would be.
Okay, thank you. I would default to our architect in residence, Commissioner Urban. Do you have any issue with that, sir?
I guess the way I'm reading it is the cementitious would be the traditional form of stucco. The synthetic is referring to EIFS, the exterior insulating finish system, Ty?
That's right.
Okay, and that's an alternative system. It still has a stucco facing to it. It just is applied on top of a polyisoceramic foam. So that's the only difference. You can't
don't
tell.
have any issues. No issues, Commissioner Urban?
No, this is standard practice in today's market.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Commissioner Miller.
I'll make the motion to approve application 2020-709 with the conditional notes to include the 100-foot berm across from Mr. and Mrs. Hoover's property.
Second.
Sorry, who seconded it? Was that Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Reasonable and consistent.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's reasonable and consistent with Matthew's land use plan as it allows an institutional use to be developed in the vicinity of the I-485 US 74 intersection. The land use plan calls for institutional uses as approved in this area of the town. And that it's reasonable in that the rezoning is reasonable because it establishes a place of worship in an area of town that is evolving with a mix of both residential and institutional uses.
Okay, thank you. I think we got all the notes in that are required. So we have a motion from Commissioner Miller, a second from Commissioner McCool.
Before we go, sorry.
I'm sorry, Renee?
I just want to make sure that the 6-foot area is really kind of blocking the view of the Hoover property. I'd asked Mr. Schaefer about it earlier, and he felt comfortable, I believe, that would be across from their home. But I would like that to be part of the motion specifically.
That is absolutely the intent, to block the view from the home of the Hoovers. What was the proposed verbiage, Jay?
That there would be a 100-foot segment that is 6 feet in height directly across from the actual home structure.
And they felt comfortable with that?
I have not spoken to them directly. Ty, have you all proposed that to them?
I've not spoken with Ms. Hoover today.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the language would provide that 100-foot long section would be centered directly across from the home in order to ensure that it blocks the view.
Okay.
That is the intent. So,
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner, do you wish to make further clarification on that? Or
Just so, yeah, I'm happy. It's fine. I'm happy with it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. How do you vote, Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
And I vote affirmative as well. That passes unanimously. I would like to thank Commissioner Urban for getting involved in some of the sticky issues on this one for us, and being kind of a go-between between us elected officials and the contractors, et cetera. So we appreciate that, Commissioner Urban. All right, we'll move on to item 10A2, Administrative Amendment for Plantation Estates.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and everyone else present. This evening, there is a request from Plantation Estates to put in an elevation and amenity approval for a pickleball / tennis court and restroom area and storage facility on their site. On the original rezoning of 2013-608, when that was approved back in July of 2014, this area was designated for future development at Plantation Estates. In November of 2019, the applicant had submitted a similar request to the board, and at that time, the board was concerned about the noise, the removal of trees, and property owners adjacent to the property, the lighting, and any additional screening that would be required. Since then, Plantation Estates has redrawn some of the amenity that they're proposing. They have also are proposing to add an acoustic fence to the fencing around the facility. Up on your screen now, you'll see that the tennis court / pickleball courts are approximately 125 feet from the nearest house at Eden Hall. And the facility is also going to be 50 feet off of Fullwood Lane.
May I interrupt you, Mary Jo, for 1 second?
Yes, sir.
Is that different than the earlier proposal?
Yes, they had, Mr. Romano, please correct me if I'm wrong, but they had 2 sets of courts, and I believe it was a little closer to the houses. I believe
we had an additional pickleball court on the other side of the proposed restroom storage building, which was closer to the houses, and we've eliminated that court.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sorry, Mary Jo, go ahead.
And so they, again, they're proposing just one, quote, tennis court that can be used for 2 pickleball courts. There'll be bus parking, as you can see on the screen, where those white long areas are. And the rest, it'll just be a storage room, restroom facility. Elevations are included in your packet. And there is one note that needs to be corrected from my memo. So they are proposing a 12-foot tall chain link fence around the courts. There was a little confusion between the documents that were submitted. One, the plan right there that you see says the 12-foot fence with the noise barrier, but the elevation said an 8-foot noise barrier. Mr. Romano and I discussed this when we caught this, and I will let him affirm this, but we have discussed this further, that whatever the board is comfortable with, either a 12-foot chain link fence height or an 8-foot chain link fence height, they will have acoustic fence the entire height of the fence. So it won't stop short, as my memo noted. Okay?
That is correct.
And they will only be using the facility between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m.
I have a question.
Yes.
Will there be lights on the property? Because if it's at 9 p.m., like in wintertime, it's pretty dark.
Yes.
So.
There will be, it is my understanding the facility will be lit. They will have to meet the lighting ordinance for the town, which means that they have to be faced inward onto the court, and we have limits as to how much light overspray is allowed from that facility, so that they have to meet those requirements when they submit the site plan.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary Jo, the buffer could not be disturbed at another time without coming back before the board? Or?
I don't think so. The original zoning plan. Jay, could you scroll down to that?
Yeah, just head right back to it.
Most of that buffer is a stream buffer, which is untouchable.
Yeah. So there's that area. Jay, can you, point up into the way up? Yes.
Kind of hard to see, I believe.
Yeah, so that was a bubble on the original zoning plan, and there is a minimum of a 50-foot buffer along there on both sides. So they really could not get any further in there with anything else. And like Mr. Romano stated, there is a stream that runs through there and a stream buffer. So
are there any questions for Mr. Romano or Mary Jo?
I have one question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Miller.
I would request that if it's a 12-foot fence, that it be a 12-foot acoustic fence, noise barrier tagged on to make sure that the sound doesn't travel over or under the fence.
Yes.
That is what we have proposed, Mr. Miller. The earlier 8-foot proposal of the fence was on an earlier drawing.
Okay.
We also have the fabric all the way to the top. My thought was, as I discussed with Mary Jo earlier today, was we'll leave the height of the fence up to you. It's a visual thing. If you go to scroll down to the next drawing, you can see a drawing that shows the view from Eden Hall. We're proposing trees. There is on the right, trees to cover that fence. That shows a 12-foot high fence with the acoustic fence all the way to 12 feet with landscape in front of it.
I think 12 and 12 is good. Balls, whether they're tennis balls or pickleball, wiffle ball type balls, can go over an 8-foot fence. So I think a 12-foot fence is good, and a 12-foot acoustic fence could be a reasonable expectation.
We're good with that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Mary Jo or Mr. Romano?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
I contacted the manufacturer, and the size of the material is 6 foot by 30 foot. So 2 6-foot pieces would make sense. Bob, my question would be, and I ordered samples. Here's a sample of the product. Would you be opposed to the green, Bob, versus the black?
No, not at all.
Okay. I think the green for the time being, while the trees are growing up, would be a little bit nicer. And in talking to the manufacturer, I think this is a wise product you chose. My other point would be on this motion is that the placement of the Acousti-Mat follows as indicated the yellow on the site plan, that it matches that. So we have some baseline in which to decide where the Acousti-Mat or acoustic fence goes. And then my only other item is, can we make a provision? I know buses like to stay running all the time. Can we make a provision that the buses that are parked there are not left running for whatever purpose?
Not being a driver, I don't know what purpose they would need to keep a bus running there, but other than that, I'd say sure.
Okay, I just know that with buses and things like that, they tend to leave them running, whether it's the wintertime, they're warming it up for 20, 30 minutes. It just seems to be, if they're parking there, they might be doing the same. So I'd just like to have the ability for Mary Jo or Jay to come back and say, no, you can't leave them idling here for extended periods of time.
Is it a noise issue, John, that you're referring to, or exhaust in the cold air? Or
noise and exhaust.
Jay, could you, or Mary Jo, could you scroll back up so we can see the yellow border that Commissioner Urban was talking about?
This one here.
I read this proposal and I was pretty impressed with the material. I didn't go as far as Commissioner Urban and order samples, but it seemed like a pretty neat thing that would reduce, what, 28 decibels or something like that. Pretty cool.
About 20, yeah.
And I think this has made a very reasonable accommodation to accommodate the neighbors, eliminating the one that was more closely situated, putting up the acoustic fence, 12 foot high around. I think this is a reasonable request, so I would be in favor of this, but I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Miller. Do we have a second?
Second.
You need to add reasonable and consistent.
I'll make a motion to approve Plantation Estates restroom, storage building elevations, parking, and tennis pickleball court based on submitted plans to include a 12-foot fence with acoustic fence in 12 feet tall, and to include the fact that no buses will remain running in the bus parking area for more than 15 minutes, and that is reasonable due to the site plan modifications, building square footage, and architectural revisions are consistent with the general vision from the original rezoning plan approved in 2014, and that it is consistent in that the changes to the site plan and building design adversely affect the overall design content from the 2014 rezoning and are thus found to be.
No,
Mr. Miller.
No, just stop it.
Did I skip something? It's consistent and reasonable.
I think we got to your intent there. Do we have a second?
Yes.
I second it.
Second by Commissioner Whitley. Commissioner Bland, how do you vote, sir? Are any questions or comments before we vote? Commissioner Bland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
And I vote affirmative as well for a unanimous decision. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Board.
You guys really think it wasn't going to happen?
Congratulations, Bob.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 11, the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda A through C.
Anybody like to second that? Commissioner Bland. Thank you. Okay, how do you vote, Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
And I vote affirmative as well, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 12, the mayor's report. I would just like to say that I'm very happy to see the community being so willing to live by these very extraordinary times we have in the actions we've taken, stay at home whenever possible. The only comment I would like to make, and I think generally everybody's doing a fantastic job, but I have seen quite often during these times large groups of children, as many as 20 or 25 children playing together. Just like to remind everyone that children are not necessarily immune from COVID-19, and so unfortunately, as hard as it is, they should also not gather in groups of more than 10 and preferably less. So it is difficult. I would encourage more online activities or playing from a distance, but large groupings of children, which we've seen in some of our parks and along the Greenway, need to be kept a little bit separate. I think that would be appreciated. But overall, fantastic job by everyone. And in particular, I would really like to thank those in the grocery stores. I see so many people in grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations working extra hours to accommodate everything that we need. And those folks are really kind of the unsung heroes. We're all aware of our nurses and doctors and things of that nature, and of course, thank them. But those that work in grocery, pharmacy, and gas stations, we need to really be thankful for them as well. That's all I have. Mr. Buckley, do you have an attorney's report?
I do not, Mayor. No report.
Okay, thank you. Town manager?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I would say is that I do feel like the countywide, there's a remarkable team that's working very hard, led by the county manager, but also locally. I think you guys know that just watching Chief Kinneberg, Chief Pennington, Becky Hawk, Tanya McGovern, and Maureen Keith. That's really the core EOC. Super professional, very dedicated, and you guys are, and the community's in very good hands with this leadership group.
Thank you. And I think we need to adjourn this meeting because Hazen is like totally in the dark now. the darkness of night, no power.
Yeah.
Hazen, work on the lighting.
Oh my gosh, it just came on, Jeff. That's
there you go.
Thing. Look at that.
That's fantastic. Good news. Thank you for everybody for participating. This was a little bit awkward this first time. We'll get better as time goes by, and hopefully we won't have to do this too many more times before we can meet in person again. I look forward to that day. Thank you, and I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, you did a good job.
Thank you.
I'm not sure who made the motion. Perhaps Commissioner McCool. Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Second by Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Bland, how do you vote? Do you want to adjourn or not? Do you want to stay longer?
Adjourn.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner? Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. I'll see y'all soon.